Welcome to M Go Bucks. Here we go. It is historic. Michigan and Ohio State are in the playoffs, despite Ohio State losing, and I'm a little bit salty that the Buckeyes got a little new lease on life. It's historic, and I can't ignore the fact that we have Michigan and Ohio State in the playoffs. Now, the Buckeyes, I think, have quite a bit tougher road to go rather than the Wolverines. But in any case, I think this is freaking awesome. I want to get your guys' opinions. Please like and subscribe before we greatly appreciate it. But I want to get your guys' opinions. What are your guys' thoughts after this weekend? I mean, it was pure freaking chaos. Jason, let's hear you.
There were some great conference championship games on Saturday and on Friday, and it jumbled everything up. But, man, they were extremely exciting. And you know what? Nothing wrong with Ohio State getting a chance to lose badly in their last two games of the season.
Matt, that sounded like that was drawing you up.
Well, I'm just worried because I think that Michigan's going to screw this up and lose the easy match against TCU after we somehow pull out the big upset over Georgia, and then you guys are going to lose to eventual Heisman winner Max Duggan, and it's just going to mess up the whole finals that would have been the best finals in the history of college championships.
Well, I would say that the only sadness I have from the weekend, because I was happy to see USC lose and happy to have OSU get in so that Nate can end up having his Wolverines lose to Ohio State in the final, assuming it gets that far, assuming both teams win. But no, I was upset at my boy Hacksaw Jim Duggan or Hacksaw Max Duggan losing that game because I think he deserves the Heisman. I don't know if he'll be able to get the Heisman after losing. But
no, there's not. No, there's not. Yeah, and thank you guys, by the way, for joining. Just to intro, Jason, Matt, and Diego are on. Everyone's kind of given their overall opinions. And speaking of the Heisman, nobody wants the Heisman, first of all. And very few teams actually wanted to be in these playoffs based on the results. I mean, TCU and USC losing.
They didn't want to be in the playoffs.
I don't think anyone wanted to play Georgia is probably what happened. But, I mean, I think that it couldn't have had any more chaos than I thought. I didn't think Michigan and Georgia would lose. That would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
But this is the most chaos we could have imagined.
What was the best championship game over the weekend?
Well, clearly TCU. That went into overtime.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Duggan was unbelievable to get it to overtime. They were down by I think it was 11 points at one point in the fourth.
He just ran and ran.
He ran for like 90 yards.
They didn't run when they didn't.
I know. All they needed was a QB sneak. A QB sneak, I know, and instead they give it to the running back.
They could have done it 4 times in a row.
Yeah, and Derpy 501st over here is saying that he doesn't think Duggan deserves the Heisman, but my question to him would be, who does? Who does? So
you can't. It's hard to give a Heisman to someone who loses.
Well,
it really is their last game, especially.
Yep.
Right, but the two undefeated quarterbacks that are in this playoff, they're not in the running. So you can't give it. You're not giving it to Georgia's quarterback, and you're not giving it to Michigan's.
Definitely not giving it to Wisconsin's quarterback.
Yeah, you're not giving it to Michigan's quarterback. So who are you going to give it to?
I told you Caleb has already won it, so it doesn't matter.
Well, unfortunately, I think you're right.
Yeah, there was voting before the game.
Only if people voted, before his last game. But I think
he played bad in that last game. I mean, he did decent considering he couldn't move. His line was terrible.
Well, they lost by 20, whatever.
The defense was terrible. And Matt,
I know, but in the end, if you're not factoring in records, then I think that opens it up to Hendon Hooker. That opens it up to Alabama's quarterback. It opens it up to your Ohio State quarterback. There are a bunch of guys with very similar stats, is all I'm saying.
I mean, it's basically Stroud or Caleb. That's it. I mean, there's no other options at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going straight quarterbacks, there is still one guy that
please.
he didn't necessarily lose, and he didn't even win a game, but he got injured. And I'm talking about Michigan running back.
We know who you're talking about. We know who you're talking about. He is undeserving of the Heisman.
He didn't play in the.
And also, your number 2 running back is better than him anyway.
Yeah,
I don't
which
think
is what I said. Which is what I said from like weeks ago. I said,
imagine if he was getting 25 carries a game the whole year.
He's
Holy
crazy.
Yeah, he breaks it off. He's not as
consistent.
Give you 6 yards every time.
Right. I agree with that.
He gets tackled pretty quick, but it's really it's a thunder and lightning kind of deal. You really need 2 running backs in today's football. I mean, for a long time, you've needed that.
Right, but he's really good for softening them up.
He damages Corum's Heisman candidacy, is all I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, have you seen his numbers the last 4 games? It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a look at Derpy 501st here. Once again, if you think Caleb Williams deserves the Heisman over CJ Stroud, you're on drugs. Williams, he threw 2 picks down the stretch. Yep, in the Pac-12 title. He choked a big moment. Williams
so did Stroud.
Yeah.
They both did.
At least Williams played in his conference championship game.
Well, I think also a product of like the Pac-12 having normal rules where the top 2 teams play, and the Big Ten having rules where it's East and West. So if they would have had the same rules as the Pac-12, then Ohio State would have been having in a rematch. So it's not like Ohio State's fault, in this scenario, because they should have been the top 2 teams. It's just if you're comparing it directly to Pac-12.
Maybe one day. That's a Big Ten's problem.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, that's a question that I've had. What would you prefer? Would you prefer to have divisions or not divisions, and have it like the way the Pac-12 goes?
They would have to restructure them, because Michigan and Ohio State, 3 out of every 4 years are going to be the best teams in the Big Ten. Yeah. So you always you're not having your best teams play in the conference championship game.
You're not.
That problem is solved come 2024. You're going to have the West have obviously UCLA.
Well, you don't know if there's going to be a West.
Well, I'm saying if they keep it the way it is, you're adding 2 teams to the West, and Purdue's going to come over to the East, and you're going to have pretty competitive West and East.
Well, we've seen it as an example this year. Like having a conference championship is an absolute killer. I mean, you've got to go out there and play and they're not all consistent. Like some are like the Big Ten, where Michigan played a 4-loss Purdue, and then USC had to go out and play Utah, who is like much better. That's much better competition.
Top 10 team.
Yeah, that was killer, and USC's out now.
Can you imagine Utah and K-State in the playoffs this year in a 12-team playoff? No one.
That would be cool to see what happened. Yeah. That'd be exciting.
Yeah,
You're just knocking yourself out of the playoffs with these conference championships.
Yep.
You're just knocking your teams out of the playoff at that point.
Well, not if you're TCU.
Not if you're TCU. Let's talk about that.
Who else are you going to put in?
Well, can I say one thing before we even get into like what we think about TCU being in after losing? I will say that Nate has pretty much come up with every opinion on both sides of every argument when it comes to who should be getting in. That like if I pull up a text from Nate, there's one where he says if TCU loses, they shouldn't get in. And then there's another one where it's like, but Alabama shouldn't be considered. So then, like, basically, Nate has argued both sides of every argument to the point where nobody would get in. Like, it's ridiculous. I wish I could show the viewers all the texts that Nate has sent in the last week. That would be
really painful for everyone. I say yes. Let's do that. Let's have it.
Guys,
we'll just show all the texts, and everyone will realize that your reading comprehension level is just not exactly high enough to be able to hang with such a conversation.
Well, listen,
but you're right. I mean, Alabama wasn't going to get in. Even like Saban came out on TV and made a fool of himself trying to lobby for his 2-loss team to get in over a 1-loss team.
Right.
I mean, that's embarrassing.
If TCU doesn't get in, they get in. That's my point. And you were like, TCU doesn't deserve to get in if they lose their conference title game, which they did. So therefore, you're saying Alabama should get in. But then when I asked you, should Alabama get in? You said, no, Alabama shouldn't get in. So it's like, what do you mean? Tennessee should get in? Like, you're just all over the place. That's what I'm getting.
I think he does think Tennessee should get in. What do you mean?
I've been meaning to have this argument with Nate on the show, so our one listener, Derpy501st, can hear it. Okay, I mean, it is absurd the arguments I've been hearing from Nate all week. Absurd.
That's only via text. That's private. So let's listen to this. Let's go to this next one. Also, TCU didn't deserve to be in the playoff either after losing to 9-3, not to top 10 ranked teams, but because there's no one else that could be in there. Hey, it is what it is. Yeah, yes. That's kind of what it was. Yeah. Like no one wanted to be in the playoffs. Everyone lost.
Who's the fourth team you'd put in over TCU right now?
You couldn't put anyone in.
They lost in overtime in the conference championship game. Who are you going to put in?
But I have a question for you guys. So what if USC didn't lose, but TCU did? So then you would have Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, USC number 3. I predicted at the time, if that scenario happened, that Ohio State would jump TCU. Because I just thought the committee wanted Ohio State in.
I think so.
I agree.
But I agree.
Yeah, and it was all based on that. But with the exact same thing, TCU doesn't move now. Just because USC lost, they didn't move at all. It's just such it's.
Did you guys watch? Crazy. Did you watch when he was getting grilled on the questions after the announcement came out? And they asked him point blank, was anyone in the room talking about seeding for there to be a rematch of Ohio State and Michigan, or were you guys trying to avoid that? And he
talking about Boo.
Whoever
his name's Boo. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Boo.
Boo Corrigan. Boo Corrigan.
Yeah. He was just lying through his teeth.
He was not lying. He was not lying.
So you're telling me not one person in that room brought that
Correct, because that's not the way they judge this. That's not.
They totally talked about it. They totally.
No way. I don't believe it.
I don't usually fall for Plessaganda.
No, listen to me. Plessaganda is
this time it's
annoying.
Not Plessaganda.
Plessaganda is annoying, but Plessaganda is worse.
Some big, big collusion going on. I'm just saying at least one person brought that up.
Yeah, and then everyone shouted him down and said, "Dude, we don't. This is not how we judge these things."
Sure. Okay.
It's not. It's not. It's ridiculous. Anybody who brought it up would be basically going directly against everything they've said for years. And there's 12 people on the committee. 11 other people would just say, "What are you talking about? We can't consider that." And then that would be the end of the story. So I do believe Boo Corrigan when he said,
"There's a very good arguments for us to be 3 after TCU."
No, I agree with that, but not to discuss matchups.
Well, only because Ohio State lost to a higher ranked team, but again, TCU was in their conference championship game and lost in overtime. But I listen, they could have made Ohio State 3, and I'm not, or 4. Either way, I don't think it's wrong.
Yeah, it's a judgment call.
Yeah, it is. They just didn't want a rematch. They thought the ratings would not be good for a rematch.
But there's no guarantee.
For Ohio State and Michigan.
Why would they not be good?
I mean, they've seen it in the past.
17 million this last one. It was the highest rated.
It is, but
ever.
A second version of that is probably going to be law of diminishing returns.
They needed to do that. They needed to make that. So. They needed to make Georgia, TCU, and Ohio State, Michigan. That's what they needed to do.
I mean, I'm glad they did it this way. Because I think playing Michigan in the national championship would just be unbelievable and a potential ratings bonanza.
But it's not going to happen. They're not going to beat Georgia.
It's going to be interesting to watch that.
It's not an impossible win.
True.
We did, yeah.
And Derpy has a good point
like
here.
We did last time.
We're talking about if Caleb wins it, there's no Heisman jinx. And when was the last time a Heisman winner didn't actually go to the playoffs? I'm sure maybe it was recent, but I just can't really remember.
Lamar Jackson was the last one I could think of.
Who was?
Lamar Jackson at Louisville.
Yeah.
That was 5 years ago? That's been a while.
No Heisman jinx. And I think the Georgia game, the Georgia-Ohio State game is going to be better than anyone thinks. A lot of Buckeye fans are down on the Bucks right now and really worried about Georgia, which they should be. But I think that the Buckeyes are going to have a different showing than they did for Michigan. With Michigan, there's baggage. They had all kinds of pressure. Even Jason said it. Ohio State had pressure on them. There's baggage there. They're not going to have any of that for Georgia. They're going to go ball out.
It's hard to repeat too.
It is. It's hard to repeat. And you know what? With Georgia, answer me this: would Georgia rather have played USC or Ohio State?
Obviously USC because they have no defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I would say even before then. They would have rather
how soft
played
Ohio State is on defense.
No,
We're not as soft as USC though.
Look, compare the statistics. It's not even close.
Yeah.
Ohio State, the roster at Ohio State versus the roster in USC is not comparable.
Yeah,
Like,
well, on defense it's not. On offense it is.
on offense, maybe. I would say not even
The offensive line.
They don't have the offensive line that Ohio State has.
Yeah.
Georgia's not happy right now. They've got to play the Buckeyes rather than playing USC. I guarantee that.
Well, I just love that so many fan bases are pissed off because we made it. So all the Michigan fans are pissed off. Definitely all the Bama fans are pissed off. All the Georgia fans are pissed because they didn't get the easy TCU or USC opening game. I mean, they still might win, but this was definitely a harder matchup than what they should have gotten.
Yeah, very true.
So Derpy's asking, since he's the only one commenting, we're gonna answer a lot of your questions, Derpy. He's asking if JSN is playing.
Well, he's been texting a lot on social media, and while it's sort of cryptic, it does sound like he's going to be playing. And then plus from other things I've heard, it sounds like he's probably going to be playing. It's just a matter of whether he's going to have like a significant, whether he'll be a significant factor or not. That's, obviously the thing. Is he going to be able to, just play like 20 or 30 snaps, or is he actually going to be able to play half a game? But I heard also that we're supposed to find, I think Ryan Day said we're going to have an answer for that in a couple days. So to me, that sounds like he's sort of back, but he might just decide to not do it because he doesn't want to risk an injury, so he could just be ready and just doesn't know whether he wants to risk the injury or not. And I mean, if Ryan Day said it's going to be in a couple days, so at least we won't have to wait a month, we'll have an answer, soon, which will be good.
Right. And JSN, you're mentioning JSN. I think I just heard you say that. But one question about JSN, do you really think he's playing? Or is he going to the NFL?
If he was a man, he'd play.
If he was a man.
Chance for a national championship. Why back off?
Yeah, no.
Well, he's got the draft to worry about, doesn't he?
Well, like I said in the previous episode, he's supposed to go about number 15 overall. But if he comes, the only reason he's not higher is because he's been injured this year, and he should have gone like top 5 had he played this year and didn't have any issues. So if he comes back and can play well in a couple games, then that will probably make some of the concerns that scouts have not as bad. And so I think that could bump him up into the top 10. And, there's a significant amount more money that you'll make top 10 or top 5 versus 15.
But all these guys are worried about getting injured. Maryland, for example, has a bunch of guys going pro who aren't going to play in their bowl game.
Yeah, I know.
Now, granted, it's not the national.
Is it worth
title.
it to make $1 million a year versus, $3 million a year? I mean, is it worth it to risk it for one?
But if you get injured, you might not get drafted.
Oh, I know.
Until like the 6th round, huh?
It's like it's like press your luck. You want to take the $1 million you got now, or do you want to press your luck and see if you might get 3 or 4?
Playing in the playoffs.
And it's not like he has to play like a whole season here. This is only asking 1 or 2 games. That's a much smaller sample size. And receivers, it's easier to, stay healthy. It's not like you're a quarterback or running back.
No, I think he should play. But I'm just saying we've got, like, as an example, we've got 3 wide receivers who only have to play 1 game. Chances of getting injured are almost nothing. I mean, it's like very low chance.
Diego, the difference is
I know it's a national title.
And your players are playing in the Skippy Peanut Butter Peter Pan Bowl.
The Duke's Mayo Bowl, I believe.
It's a condiment of some sort. Yeah.
It is a condiment or whatever. It's a good guess.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing about JSN.
That's sad that Jason almost guessed it.
Here's the thing about JSN. So if you want to come back and put on a display of your talent for the scouts when you only have a possibility of 2 games, do you really want that to be against Georgia?
Yeah, because that's how you're going to get that money.
Right.
You think you're going to want to go out and possibly get annihilated by Georgia? You think your draft stock's going to go up?
Ohio State might get annihilated, but it doesn't mean that he's going to do bad, because you look at the LSU game, they threw for like over 500 yards. I mean, granted, they played prevent part of the 4th quarter and probably in part of the 3rd quarter too. But they threw for 2 quarterbacks threw for 500 yards against them. Okay. JSN would get his yards even if we were losing by 20. He would still get his yards.
Right.
So what do you think JSN's going to be able to show the scouts in that one game versus Georgia?
Yep. He's healthy. That's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay.
That's all he needs to show.
That's exactly right.
That's all you want to show.
Yeah.
Then he's not a risky draft pick.
Yeah, his hamstring injury is not like a permanent thing, and he's recovered and he's good to go. And then instead of making a couple million, he's going to make $4 or $5 million a year.
All right. Hey, I'm good with that. I don't think he's going to play because of the injury thing. But
if I had to bet, I would say no as well. Or if he does play, he'll probably be very limited. But yeah. I'm just hoping. I'm holding out hope because he would make a huge difference because you can't game plan around Marvin if you actually have someone really good at number 2.
Yeah, and homegrown cowboy, listen to this. Back from being from Texas and TCU, it is sounding a lot like they are going to be the Cincinnati. Maybe not so much. Maybe not as much
didn't
as
play bad.
Cincinnati
Cincinnati played pretty good against Alabama. They completely shut down Bryce Young. They just had no run defense because they didn't have the horses up front to handle the running game. But they shut down their passing game.
They
did well.
Yeah. They have an amazing corner in the NFL.
They've got a couple of NFL players.
Too.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why that's why I thought that TCU the committee was going to find a way to get TCU out. It's because they did not really want another Cincinnati in there to get leveled. Even though they did put on a good show against Alabama, they did get leveled at the end.
I would have liked to see Cincinnati go against someone who didn't have a big running game. I think they would have won.
Yeah.
It was just a bad matchup.
As a Cincinnati fan, I don't disagree.
Cincinnati wasn't terrible this year. They were 8-4, 9-3, something like that after all those NFL.
Yeah, they were 9-3. Okay. They were okay.
All those guys went to the NFL and they're still pretty decent.
Yeah, true. Okay, Derpy, here's your top 4. Would have been 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 Ohio State, 4 Bama.
Wow, look at that.
He's
a Bama guy. He's a Bama guy.
So it's not based on just straight rankings or games played. It's hey, let's get the SEC in there against the Big Ten.
Make a case for Bama, Derpy.
What I would say for Bama is, some people make the argument, are they deserving or are they the best? So a lot of Bama fans would say that they are, Vegas would have them favored against everybody except for Georgia.
See, I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
What I heard.
I don't believe that.
But also Vegas spreads don't necessarily mean that the team is better because it just means it's the perception of everyone else.
Right. Nick Saban threw that out there to just get people to say, of course, Alabama's going to be favored in any game it plays.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I think that Alabama is. I mean, he's bringing up his close losses, but fails to mention his close wins. His best win was barely beating Texas. Right. Texas was without their starting quarterback for half the game.
And Texas lost to TCU. Hello, TCU was up 18-3 or whatever.
Alabama has nothing close to a signature win.
That's what I'm saying. But they even have a head-to-head. Like their best win is against a team that TCU was handily beating in the fourth quarter. They did get a long run for a touchdown to make it, I think, 17-10.
No, they dominated them. They
were dominating the whole game. So it's not like, the one like TCU, played a bunch of shitty teams and, Alabama played the SEC. If you look at the actual games on each team's schedule, I would say TCU has a better resume.
I think TCU is I would think most competent defenses would be able to handle TCU. I don't know how. That offense does not look good. It's just every now and then their quarterback makes these crazy plays on his feet, and he's not super athletic like Caleb either. It's just I don't understand. He's literally the only threat on the team, and then he just runs for 50 yards, and I don't get it. I mean, you look at K-State. K-State looked like an awesome team, especially on offense. Their offense looked really good. And I was super impressed with them, but then they just kept giving up all these fucking plays to Duggan, and he's, not the fastest guy in the world, but he was making him look silly at the end. At
the end, Duggan was moving so slow. He was winded or injured.
Have no one on
he was running with cement boots on and somehow maneuvered around everyone for that touchdown.
Yeah. That was ugly.
Well, he had ugly. He had 90-something yards on that drive. I think all of the yards, and all rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, K-State's defense was so good all game and then just completely fell apart at the end.
Yeah, you know what? So here's the thing about Bama. They lost those games, really close games, but I would much rather be playing TCU, my team Michigan, to play TCU than a 2-loss Bama. It doesn't matter their losses. I don't think that the games played matter. So if you think that one team is better than the other, I guarantee Alabama would beat TCU on a neutral field or even at TCU.
I disagree.
No,
they played Texas tougher, and that's the one common game. I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't lose, obviously, but I think it's a lot closer than you have Alabama.
I would rather play Alabama just because you get more credit for beating them, even when they're not good, and you don't get anything for
this is all TCU. Reputation. This is all reputation. Alabama did nothing this year to separate itself from TCU.
Yeah,
the roster on TCU versus the roster on Bama
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because you every year you can come up with teams that mostly recruit 3 and 4 stars, not 4 and 5 stars, but yet are every bit as good or better than teams with more talented rosters. It happens all the time. Alabama lost to 2 teams this year, LSU and who's Tennessee. The other one? And Tennessee, who I bet if you looked at the rosters, they've got more 5s and high 4s than Tennessee and LSU. Even LSU, which recruits obviously very close to Alabama in terms of level of recruiting, but definitely Tennessee hasn't over the last Tennessee hasn't ever recruited like Alabama's recruiting right now.
Well, no, and it's recruiting obviously isn't everything.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
It's definitely something, but it's not everything.
Of course, but I'm just saying if you look at the body of work of Alabama this year, they lost 2 games. They have no signature wins. Okay. And TCU lost 1 game.
Close wins too. Don't forget.
Yeah, and TCU lost 1 game in overtime, and their common opponent, TCU, did better against Texas.
Yeah, I think the thing that most people leave out is how many close wins Alabama had this year. No one ever talks about that. They weren't a dominating team. It's not like they dominated everybody, then had a couple close losses. They had close wins, even when they weren't playing Austin Peay. they were having close wins.
Alabama was only being considered and was only number 5 because of their reputation. They were getting reputational, a bump because of their reputation.
Oh yeah, 100%. They only applied the Hendon Hooker injury rule to Alabama. They didn't apply it to any other team behind Tennessee.
Yeah, because they thought that Tennessee is still good enough to be the 6th best team in the country. That's what
of course. But they
may not agree, but that's what they think.
No. I agree. I think they ranked it the right way. I just think their reasoning is horseshit. With the Hendon Hooker injury, that's really where I get kind of caught up.
They've made very clear that they're not going to rank a team with an injured player who can make a difference in an outcome. They're not going to rank that team at the same ranking as they would have otherwise. For example, if Corum were worth a damn, in other words, if Corum made actual difference, Michigan would not be number 2. They might be number 3 or 4. But because they know that Michigan's number 2 running back is every bit as explosive as Corum, they're not dinging you guys for that.
So then why is Tennessee ranked above Penn State? Penn State has their quarterback is not injured yet.
Right. Penn State is the only one where I'll agree with you. I think they should be higher than Tennessee. But again, it's a judgment call.
Penn State doesn't have a signature win, and Tennessee does. That's the difference.
Huh?
Tennessee has a signature win, and Penn State does not.
Right, but if you're
with Hendon Hooker, Hooker's gone.
Right, if you're applying the rule that the current squad that they can field in the next game matters.
Maybe they think Joe Milton is the next Hendon Hooker.
They don't think that. Trust me, they don't think that. That is funny though.
Well, he did shut out Vandy, I think, and beat him worse than Georgia did.
Yeah, but it's Vandy.
So we're looking. No, but Vandy had won the last 2 games. They beat Kentucky and someone else decent 2 games in a row. I think Ole Miss and Kentucky they beat. That's pretty good for Vandy.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I agree. Yeah, I mean they finished 5-7. I was a little surprised because.
Yeah, I mean it was their first back-to-back wins in the SEC, or first 2 wins in the SEC in quite a few years.
And Tennessee did, like Homegrown Cowboy said, they lost badly to South Carolina.
And
boat racing.
Yep.
Yeah, but they lost their quarterback in that game, and again, it wasn't as bad.
That didn't hurt their defense.
No, but Hendon Hooker wasn't scoring touchdowns to make it 60-52.
When was he hurt in that game? I didn't really watch it.
Well, I know because Matt and I had this argument, which Matt is mostly right, actually, to be fair. Matt was mostly right.
Don't let Matt be mostly right.
You're never mostly right, but in this case, Matt, you were mostly right. It was like 11:40 left in the fourth. And they were down 42-31, I believe, when Hendon Hooker got hurt. So I'm just saying it wasn't the butt whooping, or it wouldn't have been the butt whooping that it was had Hendon Hooker actually played the rest of the game.
Right. So let's talk about the 2 games we're going to see in the playoffs. Like Michigan versus TCU is a little bit boring. I think Michigan's going to win that game. I mean, it could be exciting. You never know if Max Duggan should be Heisman winner, Max Duggan.
Hacksaw Max Duggan.
Yeah.
Don't you forget it.
It could turn out to be a game. I don't know if it will. The real awesome Super Bowl of I guess the semifinals is going to be Ohio State and Georgia. So, Matt, I'm going to you. What do you think? Like, how worried are you?
It's almost impossible to make a prediction for the Ohio State-Georgia game until I know who's playing, because we have so many people. Like apparently, Brown. I don't know what the injury was on our cornerback Brown, but he got hurt in the Michigan game, and I don't know what his status is either. And as you know, we don't have much depth at corner. So, obviously, if we get him back, we get Jones back at right guard. If we get, I'm assuming Mayan Williams will be fine. I'm guessing Henderson's not back because of his ligament and bone injury. And then, JSN, of course. I mean, there's just so many variables. Like each of those players is like multiple points on the spread. So that's why it makes it really tough. Like if we don't get any of them back, obviously I would say there's no chance. But if we get most of them back, I would say we have a puncher's chance. And then if we get JSN back, I think we win for sure.
Did you say you have a puncher's or a punter's chance?
Puncher's
chance.
That's Jim Tressel talk.
I was trying to figure out what a puncher's chance is.
You have a punter's chance. So as far as just aside from the roster, what do you think Ohio State has to do to beat them? I was thinking the last time.
Score more points.
Yeah.
You had to threaten them deep like Alabama did.
Yeah, like in 2021, right? Yeah.
Same game plan. Go deep.
Go deep.
Respect that, and then that'll open up the running game. We're gonna have to throw to open the running game.
All right, we got some comments we should probably respond to.
You know what? I think that Ohio State has a chance in that game. I think a lot more than maybe everyone else does. Give the Heisman to Hooker and call it a day, and just he deserves regardless if he got hurt. Yeah.
Missed too many games.
Yeah.
No one's ever won the Heisman that missed that many games. Right?
Yeah.
First of all, my problem with this whole thing is everybody's saying who deserves it, who doesn't, like as if it's a clear-cut thing. There are, in my opinion, there are 4 or 5 quarterbacks who all have very similar stats, who all have warts because their teams lost or they didn't play the last few games. I mean, this should be the closest, assuming everybody waited to vote, this should be the closest Heisman vote in a long, long, long time. And even because of ranked choice voting, I think they do ranked choice voting. So you could have like a guy who's got a bunch of second place votes that actually could win the Heisman that has fewer first place votes than the second place guy or whatever. So
what's unfortunate, Diego? This year would have been the perfect year for a defensive player to win the Heisman, but there just hasn't been any dominant. Right. Like if Chase Young was this year, or Ndamukong Suh was this year,
or the Michigan guy,
Will Anderson, or even Will Anderson from last year played like he did last year. This year, I mean, there's so many amazing defensive performances.
Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson wins it last year.
The guy with the hot mom.
If Bryce Young doesn't have that awesome game against Georgia beats them, like Aiden Hutchinson's winning that Heisman. Yeah. Very sad. And you know what? Injury,
perfect year for that.
Injury to Blake Corum, like with all these other losses, he would have walked into that Heisman. Yeah. If he would have beaten Ohio State and had that Heisman game, he would have walked into that Heisman this year. But fortunately, you need more Heisman moments and against Heisman games. Who had a Heisman game?
You need to prove that your running game isn't every bit as good when you're out as when you're in.
Yeah.
That too.
True.
No, even better. It's better when he's out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Blake is overrated.
He's
Nate,
great.
oh,
He's great.
Nate, I wanted
agree
to
with
Great
read.
Brian.
value for the team, but he's not as good as his counterpart.
Brian knows. Corum was healthy. He'd have ran away with it.
Maybe, but
Yeah, I think so.
That's funny. Pun intended.
Just because he would be the only Heisman candidate on a winning team, undefeated team.
now what about Georgia's quarterback? What are his stats?
Not anywhere
Georgia's
near.
quarterback.
Stetson Bennett doesn't have.
He's just super solid.
11-0.
And he's so good on such a good team. They don't like to give the Heisman to people who don't have the Heisman game.
No, I know he
Yeah.
wasn't even considered, right?
He's a good team player. He's not a dominant player.
Right.
Georgia wins because of their defense. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to give it to someone on Georgia. Give it to one of their defenders.
Well, you say that, but they scored 50 points on LSU.
Yeah, but how many? That wasn't offensive points. They had one that was like a fluke missed field goal, and the guy just blocked the field goal, and then he waited 5 seconds, and then he picked it up and ran it back for a touchdown.
Stetson Bennett's solid. I think he had 3 touchdown passes in the first half.
Yeah, he's pretty solid, but he only has 20 for the whole season, at least passing, and 6 interceptions. So it's kind of a little low for a Heisman candidate.
That's really low, especially for 2022.
Yeah. Last year he had 29 and only 7 interceptions. But I guess
more games too.
Well, no, but his rating was higher by 22 points. I mean, he played better last year. I mean, statistically he did.
Yeah, I think he does. And Blake Corum was more consistent than Donovan. I mean, Donovan doesn't necessarily have all those games behind his belt. He was injured a lot of the year, so he may have been able to show more. But
Corum might not have been able to beat us because if he was getting 90% of the snaps in the game, there might not have been any breakaway runs. We might have not given that up.
By the way,
the complexion of the game changes, so you never know.
Did you see Donovan interviewed after the game? That guy has the most unique voice. I mean, I was just like, he sounds like an alien. I don't know what the hell is going on with that guy. You guys didn't see that interview?
No.
He's confident, real confident.
Oh,
I saw it.
He's super confident, has a very unique, deep voice, and totally was disregarding Joel Klatt's question.
He said, I think, what did Joel Klatt say? Something like, what do you think you have to do to, for the next 2 games or something? And he said, that goes without saying. And then
he said, what's your goal? Which was kind of a dumb question. What's your goal? But he could have humored him. Instead, he just went off on his own rant.
And Joel Klatt wasn't going to ask, in that situation, some complex question. He just wanted to ask a gimme question, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he wasn't playing along, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no, he wasn't really playing along.
He wasn't rude, but he wasn't. He didn't seem that media savvy, or at least he didn't care about how it looked on TV. And then again, he had this weird, deep voice, like the deepest voice I've ever heard in my entire life. He didn't sound
awesome voice.
Yeah, he didn't
voice of a guy who can bust out 85 yards any second.
You look at him and you don't think he's going to sound like that. You know what I mean? Like when you see somebody and you're like when you see a huge Hulk, muscular dude, and then he sounds like, he has this high pitched voice. It was kind of like that, but obviously he's a muscular guy, so you expect a deep voice, but it was still weird. It was very weird.
This is a weird conversation.
I think Diego is having a weird feelings. Exactly.
I'm sure anyone who heard the interview was like, wow, that's a weird
Diego's
voice.
having tingly feelings in his neck.
Hey, let's get to this question
this
comment.
Ohio State need Henderson and Williams back? I think Williams is definitely going to be back. I think from what Henderson tweeted, I don't see how, if you had ligament and broken bone, I don't see how you're going to make him back in 4 weeks, right?
By the way, shout out to Antoine. He's back. He's got a laughing emoji for us, but we're waiting on actual questions. Antoine, give us a question. Anyway.
Oh goodness.
Antoine's been a loyal watcher / listener. So, there we go. Okay. I know what you mean about the voice. Sometimes the voice don't fit the body or the face. See, Antoine doesn't think my comments were weird.
Yeah.
Yes,
you
he
know
does.
what?
He's just being nice.
Looking at Diego's face, I'm surprised he sounds as much of a man as he does.
That's very
Antoine,
true.
I appreciate you backing me up, man.
Georgia, yeah, that's the money. That's the money line, right? Georgia's going to win. I do think Ohio State's going to be a lot more dangerous with that talent on that roster, but Georgia, man, it's hard to imagine them losing at all, even against Michigan too.
When people come back,
I mean, for as much as everyone thinks that they're going to blow us out, if that was the case, why is the spread still 6.5? You know,
Ooh, Leonard thinks so.
We have about a month before everything's settled.
It's 7 points right now, and it'll go up.
Yeah.
Probably closer to game day, I'll bet.
I doubt it. I think it's going to go down as more people get healthy.
Yeah, that's very possible. And yes, Antoine, I did see that Nick Saban panhandling. It was just that's such a good word, panhandling. He was. Yeah, it was just pathetic.
That's the best description I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Anthony.
Yeah, and you know what?
Like
you could tell, like you had the announcers on there. They're asking him questions like, "Hey," they're asking him pointed questions, and he was kind of ignoring. Like they were trying to point out that he was actually just there to lobby, something that no other coach had. Let's just have Alabama on here, Alabama coach. While he's actually. And Urban Meyer said, "Hey, I know you need to get back to your recruiting dinner."
Yep.
But it was just pathetic.
He should have had one of those signs that he was spinning around and doing tricks with that said, "Put us in the playoffs." And
So I'm gonna take a page from Nate, and I'm gonna say that Nick Saban doing that was actually, quote, weaselly, as Nate likes to say.
That was really weaselly.
That was super weaselly, and I'll tell you why. He pretended like he was like the above talking smack about other teams just so that he wouldn't have to get into the argument. Like people asked him, well, what about this team or what about that team? And he was like, I don't talk about other teams. Yeah, you don't talk about other teams when you can't talk about other teams without making your team look bad. Like he like used an excuse, like he was above saying negative things about other teams when it was only that he didn't want to answer the question.
Yeah, I can't remember who asked that. It might have been Reggie.
Well,
And
maybe.
Like, well, I don't really like to talk about other teams. Because he was leading him down and say, well, why does your 2-loss team deserve to get in above a 1-loss team?
Total weaselly excuse.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I wouldn't go evil. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say weaselly.
Georgia 47, Ohio State 10.
I don't think it'll be that bad.
Leonard, what are you, a Georgia fan? What's going on here? Where are you getting that from?
10 is a little ridiculous.
Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that wide.
It won't be 37.
Homegrown Cowboy says, "Dang, some Saban hating going on." Well, how could you not hate Saban if you're not an Alabama person? I mean, he is just, he's a weasel, 100%. Like the way he left the NFL, like everything he does is weasel.
Well, he complains about everything. He was complaining about the spread offense because he didn't before he had it. Because he's like, "Oh, well, people are going to get injured if we keep allowing this hurry up spread offense stuff."
You know who complains a ton? A pro coach at Ohio State, Mike Vrabel. Oh my God, I watched the Bengals Titans last week. He whined every single play. It was really terrible.
Well, Saban, the way he treated the Texas A&M coach with respect to all the NIL stuff, that was also weaselly as shit. Not that I'm a big fan of him either, but you guys remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just ridiculous. Saban is always saying absurd shit.
Yeah, and it's like poor Saban. He doesn't have access to.
He doesn't have enough advantages.
The best recruiting in the country every year. And I love that the NIL is going to make it so all the other northern schools and schools in the West could actually catch up because all those schools in the South have been paying off their players for years anyway. So now everyone else can, get on board. And now this is actually going to hurt a lot of the SEC schools.
Well, and did you see where they asked Saban? It was like, hey, what do you think about playoff expansion? And, this time at least, he was like, oh, I'm all for it. Expand those playoffs because, he's
when you're number 5. Right.
The guy who's number 5 wants to expand the playoffs. Of course he does.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I hate to side with Jimbo Fisher, but on that whole thing to repeat that again, the whole thing with Texas A&M, I couldn't even believe he was saying it. I'm like, dude, you fucking pay all your players just as much as Jimbo pays his. I don't believe for a second that there's a big difference between what Texas A&M is doing and what Alabama is doing.
Maybe to the degree is a little different. I mean,
but are there any rules that say that Jimbo's doing anything wrong? Was he alleging anything?
Not now, but
no, this was last year.
Yeah, just last year. No, he didn't do anything wrong.
Right. This is post NIL.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because he was denying that he was denying it. I mean, Jimbo was denying it, even though it was legal. He was still denying it.
But because fucking Saban was making an issue of something that's a non-issue.
Yeah,
and
well, he should have at least admitted to it because he did buy all those players. I mean,
so did Saban. I would have just been. I don't know. Maybe Jimbo didn't answer it properly, but Saban is the worst.
Saban looks worse, but people were making fun of Jimbo too because he was acting like he didn't pay for all those players, and obviously they did.
Right,
which is fine, but at least admit to it.
Yeah. So homegrown Cowboy says Georgia 35, Ohio State 28, Michigan 52, TCU 17. Wow. Okay, Nate, you're muted. We're not hearing you, buddy.
I wish we could do that to you, Diego. I wish we could.
Nate, you muted yourself. You were trying to mute me, but you muted yourself.
Darn, I was trying to mute you. But yeah, I think Georgia, Ohio State, that score is pretty. I mean, it's reasonable.
As long as Ohio State gets a couple of players back, I think that might be okay. If they don't,
well, Leonard wasn't reasonable, but the score that was it Darby? Who's the one who said? Oh, I'm sorry, homegrown Cowboy. His TCU score I think is off. I don't think TCU is going to be. I don't think they're going down.
Ooh, look at that one.
Ohio State 48, Georgia 45. Well, we're talking like no defense in these games.
Yeah.
Well, look what he has TCU Michigan at.
34-27.
TCU.
Yeah.
Ooh, so I think he's a Ohio State fan, I'm guessing.
Hey, that's all right.
No, it is completely fine. I give a lot of money to Ohio State. I don't even like them.
It's because you had a kid.
You're wearing their hat. You're wearing their hat.
Because my son gave it to me like as a birthday present. So
you get that in the mail if you spend all that money to go to Ohio State.
First of all, where's your UC hat?
In the closet.
Yeah, why aren't you wearing that?
Because we're not. This is MGO Bucks, not MGO UC.
Yeah,
right.
Diego.
You're telling everybody that you're not an Ohio State person, so you might as well wear your hat.
Nah, this is all for fun. This is good.
Leonard, I agree. TCU will play Michigan tough. I don't think that's going to be a blowout game by any means. Michigan might pull away in the second half like they always do.
A lot of dead air here.
That's true. I mean, TCU has maybe two players that would start on Michigan's team. Very true. Yeah, I mean, but
like
definitely at least two.
Like the quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Antoine says, I think with expansion going along with NIL, this will further spread the talent. Players won't just gravitate to the hand for the teams that can win it all. Yeah. I mean, we're hoping that NIL will actually do that. But you know what? Like, teams have to embrace NIL for that to happen.
So the weird thing with NIL is so A&M, started out hottest with going crazy and just spending, getting their millions of dollars up right away and bought a ton of players. And I mean, their class last year was by far the best, but they've lost a lot of those players already to the portal. So I don't know, maybe that was money not well spent because they're already losing so many of those 5-stars in the portal already after just 1 year.
Yeah, well, weren't you talking about how there was a team that signed somebody to a 3-year deal right off the bat? That's what's going to have to happen unless otherwise you're going to have recruits leaving after a year.
There's a ton. All of the average teams. All the average teams are, their star players are already. I'm sorry, maybe below average teams. All their star players are already in the portal. I'm just seeing it every day. Only good player on Nebraska in the portal. Only good player on all these below average teams they're already in the portal. So it's just going to be a crazy bidding war for all these guys.
Yeah, but I mean, by the same token, you're going to have the Ohio State and Alabama players who are on the 2 deep or 3 deep who are going to say, well, I'm not going to play this year. I'm going to go play for Maryland instead of Ohio State so I can actually get on the field. So, I mean, it works both ways.
It's going to be tough when you have minimums, though. Like Ohio State and A&M are going to have minimum salaries for their whole team. That's going to be hard to compete with.
Well, yeah, but again, if the players,
the salary, dude, you're going to get like, $100,000 just for going there, even if you suck. Like the guys that are like third string that don't ever play are still
$100,000 is going to be the minimum.
Yeah.
I like Darby's comment. I agree. I think Georgia's going to go all out to crush Ohio State.
Well, yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they?
You haven't heard that, Diego? I didn't tell you the NIL minimum that they already established?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Ohio State and Maryland make the same amount of money, okay? One is the powerhouse. One is a middling Big Ten team. Where is this extra money going to come from?
It's not from the school. It's from the NIL collectives.
Right, but what I'm saying is what gives the Ohio States of the world a big advantage when
those they have more people donating to the collectives.
Yeah, but who says, an average team can't have a bunch of rich graduates who start donating to the collective?
I'm a big fan of parity, Gary. Big fan of parity.
Me too.
Yeah. Parity or
Shut up, Diego.
Which parity are we talking about? Are we talking about parity as in like the joke or parity as in like everything's equal?
You just be quiet.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of Ohio State, was there an article or someone sent a text that said Drake May is going to be transferring?
That was me.
Was that you?
That wasn't confirmed yet, but it was a lot of news that was going on that Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama were vying for his transfer. He hasn't put his name in the portal yet, but it must be like, some behind the scenes bidding going on.
Yeah, NIL stuff. And
none of those schools have like a concrete starter for next year.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting if that would work out. Drake May didn't look very good against Clemson, though.
Well, Clemson has a good defense. That's just their offense has been trash until
they
play North Carolina. And North Carolina is just horrible defense.
By the way, Clemson's coach is the only coach I dislike more than Nick Saban.
Yeah, I agree with you, Diego. He's the worst.
He is the fakest.
Dabo is so fake. No, you know what? Brian Kelly's even worse than him. You're wrong.
Right.
No one. Did you hear his fake Southern accent when he took the job?
Yeah, okay, that's bad. But you know what Dabo did before this NIL stuff existed? So we're talking 10 years ago. They were talking about future NIL deals or talking about paying players, and he was like, I don't want to live in a world where players are making a bunch of money. These kids are student athletes. Meanwhile, I make $8 million a year to coach football. I'm a complete hypocrite. I fucking hate
now he's not saying that anymore either. Now he's
because now he's paying players. He's a piece of trash. That guy's a piece of trash. Oh,
agreed.
Disgusting.
He's the worst.
Disgusting human being.
Diego with a Southern accent. Please use that all the time. Actually,
by the way,
never talk the way you are now.
Well, I'm trying to do my best.
Well, you know what?
Like that.
I mean, look at what Antoine's saying. There should be some type of NIL donation cap, and that's coming, right? I mean, the NCAA has to do something. It's not.
No, they don't have to do anything.
Well, they don't have to, but I mean,
why are you limiting
don't you think it's going to?
They should not. Why are you limiting an adult's ability to make money? Why?
Well, they do that in the NFL. I mean, they have salary caps. Can't they?
No. They have salary caps because they have salary caps because you're talking about an antitrust exemption that they have. The NFL doesn't exist without the antitrust exemption. I don't know enough about it to speak super intelligently on it, but there are legal reasons why the NFL is a unique situation that you cannot compare to the NCAA, and it's because of the antitrust exemption that allows it to exist essentially without competition. Anyway, trust me, it's a different animal. Now, where'd Matt go? Why you?
He probably went into a coma listening to you talk.
I'm just saying, where'd you go? What is he doing here? I don't understand what he's doing here.
Hey.
All right. Anyway, let's address some other questions here.
Yeah, I think we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon, especially since Matt seems to be, I think maybe his hour-long curfew, apparently, from his wife is starting to come up.
I need to watch the end of the Bengals Chiefs going on here right now.
No, you don't.
There's 8:54 left, 27 Cincinnati, 24 Kansas City. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know, like, right now, it's early. We're going to keep talking about this as we go. But what are your predictions, like, in the semifinals? Just the semifinals. We don't have to talk about the national championship, generally. Let's hear it. Start with you, Diego.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm not going to give a score because I don't pretend to be some, predictor of the future.
Why? Are you Nick Saban? You don't talk about other teams?
Just get to the point, Maryland.
Well, I'm just saying,
dude.
I think Georgia's going to win. I think they're going to win pretty handily, maybe 2 touchdowns. But no, I don't think it's going to be like a 45-10 game like one of the commenters said. But I think Ohio State will score in the 20s. Georgia will score in the 30s, maybe high 30s. And then the other game, I want to say that TCU is going to win, but unfortunately, I just don't believe it. I think Michigan's going to win, but I think it'll be closer than most people expect. I don't know what the spread is right now, but I would say it'll be 7 points.
I think it's 9 points.
Yeah, okay, maybe a little closer than the spread, maybe 5 to 7 points, not 9. But yeah, I think Michigan unfortunately is going to win.
Michigan, unfortunately, is going to win.
Yeah.
Nobody likes Michigan.
And unfortunately, Ohio State's going to lose.
And unfortunately, Ohio State's.
I told you, Ohio State's my second team.
Good Lord.
My dad graduated. I wouldn't even exist if it weren't for Ohio State. Possibly.
Matt, let's hear it from you. Prediction on the semifinals.
I think Michigan is going to beat TCU 42-28. I think that they're going to dominate. I think Duggan will have a respectable effort. Maybe it gets a little closer than that just because he's such a beast, but I just don't think TCU overall is that good. I think that Michigan is, definitely one of the best teams they've ever had. So, I mean, that they're on a roll right now. And Ohio State, Georgia, I think when we get all of our guys back, I think we're very likely going to have everyone back except for maybe JSN. And I think with that, I think we should be able to, it's just a matchup we all wanted last year. The elite passing offense against Georgia's amazing defense. We're finally going to get it this year, and it's against a defense that's, not quite as dominant as they were a year ago. And I think with our guys healthy, I think we'll be able to have a pretty good chance to pull off like a 3-point upset. And it's going to probably be relatively high, something like 30, 38, 35 or something.
Your lips to God's ears.
What?
Your lips to God's ears.
Yeah, I mean, if JSN is there, I would be more confident. Right now I'm thinking, 3-point win, but with JSN, I think we could get it to 10.
Okay, real quick before we get to you, Jason, I've got to post this.
After Jason goes,
for real, who let the Maryland guy in?
I like you, Gary.
I love that.
I like you, Gary.
All right.
That's funny.
All right, Jason, come on.
All right. TCU just doesn't have the defense or horses to hold up to Michigan and the Michigan running attack. That's going to be at least a 17-point win. Ohio State, they get some players back. They're going to make it a game. But ultimately, they are not going to win. And the difference is either 7 to 17 points, depending on how many people Ohio State have back. They're just not going to be able to stop Georgia. And, yeah, it's not going to happen. Sorry, Matt.
All right. Well, I guess
it's up to me now. Were you just going to skip me, Diego?
Oh, I thought. You know what? I thought you were just a moderator and you didn't.
Okay. Hey, I would like a turn. But so I think Michigan's going to handle.
I was waiting. Hold on
TCU.
before you go, Nate. I would actually like it if one of the commenters would ask who let the Michigan guy on here. That would be the more appropriate.
He started the show. He's got.
By the way,
to stay.
Gary, I hope you like me and you're just trying to be funny.
You may not want the answer to that.
I'm actually a
don't
little
ask
sad.
questions you don't want the answer to.
Diego, your friends, all of us don't even like you.
Oh, I like you, Diego. I still do.
We really do like you.
Mostly. So for TCU, Michigan, I think Michigan's going to handle business. That's probably going to be a boring game, to be honest. I hope I hope that it is, but in the back of my mind, I can also see TCU really putting up some numbers on them. Michigan take them for granted, but I think they'll run away with it in the second half. As far as Ohio State versus Georgia, right now, I reserve the right to change my mind. I think the Buckeyes win that in a close one.
Wow. Damn.
And not for just the only reason is that I don't want to see Ohio State again. I don't want to play them again. I don't ever want to see them again until next year. But I think that the football universe is against me. keep talking. But I think the football universe is against me, and we are going to see Michigan play Ohio State again in the national title game. It just feels like one of those historic years, and that's what I think.
I'd like to see it. That would be my favorite game to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't want to see it. I'm predicting something I don't want to see. That's really painful.
Does someone have COVID? I've seen a lot of coughing. You just had it recently?
No, months and months ago.
He has herpes of the lungs.
So let's wrap this up, guys. Thanks a lot for joining. Everyone, please subscribe, and we hope you have a great night.
You forgot like.
It's a historic. This is historic, all right? This is historic that Michigan and Ohio State are both in the playoffs. I think we should all enjoy it, even though I'm a little bitter about it. I think we should enjoy it. So,
Gary,
have a good one, guys.
Comment. I feel better now.
Oh, I don't want to show this. I was hoping he wasn't being funny. He meant it. But in any case, talk to you guys later. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.
Let's do it again soon.
Go back.
Thanks, everyone.